Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining tonight. I'm seeing some familiar faces, and it is great to have you. My name is, for those who I haven't met yet, my name is Nina Hirota, and I have the pleasure of serving this year as the VP of Programs for the Suncoast chapter. And I could not think of a better way for us to start the year and work more closely with you than tonight's theme, the talent development capability model. So thank you. I hope you enjoy the event. And I wanted to briefly walk you through our agenda tonight. So uh, I'm gonna, in just a minute, I'm gonna hand it over to Nate Salatin, our chapter president, who will be officially welcoming you and sharing his opening remarks. And then I will introduce you to our guest, Holly Batts. And our original speaker, Morgan Hurd, had a family emergency, unfortunately, uh, and will not be able to join us. But Holly's her colleague from the credentialing team, and will and with equally, if not greater, background, and she will be presenting in her place. So thanks again, Holly, for joining us tonight. And as I was saying, what a better way to start our activities in 2021 than talking about what practitioners need to know and do to develop themselves, not just themselves, but also, of course, those in their organizations and the potentially affecting the culture and the organization itself. So we're very pleased to have Holly. And I also want to invite you to stay through the end, because after Holly's presentation, I will give you a sneak preview of the exciting events that we are planning on offering you this year. So just before closing, I hope that's reason enough for you to not only love the presentation, but to stay with us through the end. And you see the footnote on the slide here. I wanted to remind you of something that we posted in the site, but so it doesn't go unnoticed. Uh, in times of social media, of course, uh, events like these are extremely helpful. And we are recording tonight's session, not just from a perspective of social media and our marketing communications, but also for the benefit of the members who were unable to join tonight. And Holly has also shared her presentation, which will also be distributed in a little bit. But anyway, uh, we hope that you don't have any issues with that, but we wanted to let you know that the thought here is really not just to benefit the chapter, but also the members who were unable to attend. Okay, so with that, and without further ado, hey Nate, please take us away.
Yeah, sure. And I'll keep this very short because I'm excited to get to the rest of the program. Nina, do we have a photo of I guess the boards? So just wanted to quickly welcome everybody. This is our first event, kind of our first big monthly learning event of the year. And obviously COVID's been hard for all of us, but one of the things for this last board, the outgoing board in 2020, was that we didn't get to kind of have that final event in 2020. Jingle and Mingle, if you all are familiar with it, is typically our largest event of the year. In person, we have a lot of fun. And I feel bad that the 2020 team didn't get to have that event and kind of say goodbye. Several of them are on the call today. We've got two past presidents at least, Pia last year and then Jen the year before. Both of those ladies and the board from last year just did a phenomenal job adjusting to COVID. It was certainly probably one of the most interesting years to be on the board, and just did a great job and really took it on, even with all the disruption, and still had a fantastic year. So thank you to all of them and everybody that was on that board and supported the chapter the way they did. And then moving on to this year, 2021, we've got a new team. We're all very excited. about this year. Nina's mentioned some of the exciting programming that we have coming up. In addition to that, we have SIGs and gigs events. We have happy hour events. We have a lot of what we had last year, and obviously we're all excited to get back to being in person again when we can. But in the meantime, we're making the best of it and doing great programming like what we've got tonight. So you probably see several of these people on the call tonight. Feel free to always reach out to myself or anybody on this team if you want to get involved, or if you think that somehow we can help you. There's, I mentioned it in the email newsletter that we sent out a few days ago or last week, that our industry is hurting right now in a lot of ways. I personally know a lot of people that have been laid off, job wise, or are struggling to get work. And so I would just encourage everybody, to our value proposition for the chapter is to connect, learn, and share with each other. And so please don't, sit behind the screen and not do those things, right? I challenge you to engage at the highest level that you can, especially now, because the community, in Tampa Bay, talent development community here in Tampa Bay needs you to engage. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Nina. I'm very excited about tonight. And again, welcome to our first event of the year.
Thank you so much, Nate. Appreciate it. So allow me to introduce our guest speaker. So Holly Batts is Associate Director of Credentialing at ATD, and she is bringing us more than 15 years of experience working in the nonprofit sector. You're a hero, Holly. Her background in developing and maintaining certification programs include mid to high stakes assessment, working with organizing SMEs, a thorough understanding of the certification process in itself. She has an MS in organizational leadership, as well as, if that weren't enough, the PMP, Project Management Professional Certificate. I did take the training and never took the exam. And a CAE as a Certified Association Executive certification. So for those of you who joined a little bit earlier, you may have overheard, but Holly will take a few points. So we coordinate. Holly will stop at a few points throughout her presentation. So instead of leaving for Q&A at the very end, she will pause at some points, and I will welcome your questions at any time. We will welcome your questions at any time in the chat. And when she pauses, I'll read them out for Holly. Okay, so anytime, any questions, more than welcomed. And reiterating that she's also making her materials available. So those of you who registered are going to receive a copy. Okay, so Holly, once again, thank you so much. And please, I made you co-host, so you should be able to share your screen. I think you're still muted.
Thank you. Thank you all for having me. First of all, let me pull this thing up. I thought that the slides were already loaded, but no worries. Hold on just a second. Let me run back.
Sure.
Talk amongst yourselves.
Well, we can review your background again, because I'm still impressed that you got all of those certifications.
Oh, thank you. And you can look at my lovely virtual background that I was not able to get up. Welcome to my messy home. I'm so embarrassed. Let's see. I'm going to.
I have a PDF version of your presentation, so Molly and I thought that you were going to present it.
How do I share my screen? Share screen right there. Duh.
There you go.
And I want screen 2. Sorry about that, y'all. Hey, Florida Suncoast. I want to level set to begin with. Some of you may have already heard some of this, but because there might be some newbies among you, I did want to start at the very beginning. So if you've heard some of this before, take it as a new lesson, or to solidify some of the things that you may have already heard. But I'm going to pretend like you all are newbies and start at the very beginning with this. And I think that kind of helps. And then I plan, well, I think I even have, I do, a agenda. I want to go over why the model is so important and why we put so much into it. Because it is a research-based model, but talk about some of the trends we saw in our research and the impact of the model, and then actually go into the interactive model itself and show you some neat things. And then I'm going to end with, Nina was talking about the beginning of the year and how this is a great time because people are thinking about professional development. The model can really help with professional development because it can help help you figure out where your weaknesses are and where your strengths are, and end with a little bit about certification. So that's kind of where my mind is going right now, where I'm going to take you over the next couple of minutes. So let's take off. What are the goals of a competency model? I know that some of you who've been around for a while with ATD know about our competency models, and even in your workplace, you may have them and have used them. And for us, it really does define the field for which we represent. For us, it's talent development. The last time it was done was in 2013, 2014, and we were still ASTD then. So this is the first time we were doing the research under the banner of talent development. We do it about every 5 to 7 years, and really it should be done as often as the profession calls for it to be. If it's a fast-paced profession, things change a lot, then a little bit sooner. But it also helps with career pathing for professionals. Because as Nina said earlier, it is what the professionals are saying is important to know and to be able to do to be successful in your job. And it does align with best practices in competency modeling. So that's kind of what our goals were when we started this a while back, and it still remains as themes throughout as we continue to do little tweaks and as we're looking at 2021, some of the updates that we're going to be doing. Looking back at who helped us way back when, you may see some heavy hitters in the field. You may recognize some names. These were the people that we gathered to be our advisory group. They were the ones who we went to one-on-one and did interviews with, asking them to look at the current model that I'll show you in just a minute, the old model now, and ask how maybe were we bumping up against the edges. We also asked them where they saw some of the trends in the field since the last time we did this research. They helped us also, once we got the research back, to help figure out how to make sense of it. So they really were kind of our gods and goddesses of knowledge. We had a few minor gods and goddesses of knowledge that became our task force, and you may recognize some names. These people we felt like were some people who you may know. You see a lot of CPTDs in that list of people, and they really helped us hone the knowledge and skill statements that made up the survey that went out to everyone in the land, literally. They also helped with the demographic survey, part of the survey. And so along the way, they helped also, they were part of a focus group, but they really did contribute. But then the big piece of it, and let me stop for a second and come back out and show you the big picture. This really started in September of 2018. So if you think of it now, it's a little over 2 years old since we started this whole process. We started with a literature review, and it was not just ATD books that we looked at. We looked at all of the industry books that had been published, textbooks, magazine articles, journals. We sent it all to, we had a research partner who helped us, and they helped us also with the survey development, which was the biggest piece of this that I feel like, because this was the voice of the profession. You may remember it. It was a survey that went out in January of 2019. And you may have gotten this weird email in your box that said, please fill out this survey. And we had a huge response from it. We were very happy for that response. I'll talk about that in just a second. And once we got all of those results back, this big survey, and anybody who works with data and analytics knows how do you kind of massage it to make sense and present it in a way that the profession's going to be able to consume it. And so that was really what we did for the greater part of 2019, and we went public. Well, we first released it to ATD members in December, and then we did a more public one, release launch in January of last year. And it really is what ATD is all about, but also what the profession is all about. We, of course, provide for the profession. And so if you look at our website, what is the way our website is organized is based on this model. Our conferences are based on this model. Our certifications are based on this model. So really it is our backbone, much like it is the backbone of what the professional said that this is what you all know and need to be able to do. So this survey, let me go a little bit deeper into it. The knowledge and skill statements that task force helped us with ended up being 197 statements long, which is a really long survey. And we ended up breaking it up into 3 different surveys so that not one person had to sit there and answer 197 knowledge and skill statements. And over here on the right on the screen is actually what the question was. We had you look at the knowledge statement, be able to understand adult learning theories, let's say, would be one. And we asked you, how important is this knowledge or skill for you to be able to perform in your job successfully now and in the next 3 to 5 years? And so we had people rating from 1 to 4, from not important to very important. And there were also 15 demographic statements or questions that people had to fill out. And that was very important after we got all of the research back in order to parse it out into the individual roles and levels. So who contributed to the survey? Everybody and their brother, it seemed like. We sent it out to all of the ATD members. The chapters were huge partners in this, in getting it out to your members who may not be national members, people who had been to anything ATD. We posted the link on LinkedIn. We asked people to send it to their contacts. I really do feel like we sent it to the far reaches of the universe. It was a huge undertaking, and I'm very happy to say that we got over 3,000 usable survey responses. And when I say usable, in some cases, we could tell when people got tired with survey fatigue, and if they started out rating and then all of a sudden you saw a whole bunch of very, very, very importance, or just in the patterning. But also if somebody didn't complete the survey, we threw that out as well. And so we had over 3,000 usable survey responses, which does represent the highest response rate that we've ever received from a competency study. And we've been doing this for 40 years. So even though ATD has been in existence for 77 now, we celebrated 75 a few years ago, we've been doing competency modeling for about 40 years. So let's dig a little bit into the demographics and who actually responded to the survey. And if there are any data geeks, you might be interested in some of this. We were very pleased with the spread of how it turned out. Sometimes you find that a lot of one section of a certain demographic answers the survey and not a lot of this section, but we really did feel good about the spread of responses. As you can see here, it was a good spread of large, medium, small, micro, macro organizations. The different types of organizations are also represented here. 77% came from the US, which was a good representation, but what was even more important than that was that 23% came from outside the US. So we did feel like it was a really good global standard. Just as a side note, when you look at, say, our annual conference that we have each year in non-COVID times, that's about 23% come from outside the US. And also when you look at our applications for certifications, it's about 25% of applications come from outside the US. And so we do feel like that this is representative of who our audience is, but also we feel like it's not just a US based standard, that we can say that this is a global standard. It was a good demographic as far as female and male. We know that in some cases, the advanced degree is very heavily represented here. And then the years of experience you see there. On the right is another one that we were very happy about. You think of a C-suite person, a vice president, sitting high up in his or her ivory tower. No, not really, but they're very busy and they don't have time to fill out a survey this survey really did take about 45 minutes to an hour of your time if you sat there and looked at each statement and thought about it. And so having 12% of the responses come from the C-suite, we did feel like was a good amount. Because we did feel like we were able to capture a career progression in our responses. And as we're looking at the data to see what people at different levels think is important to be able to know and do. And so we felt good about being able to level the information. So this is just some of the information. Part of what we talked about with our advisory group and the task force were what the new model should include. I hinted at that earlier about some of those one-on-one interviews that we did, and they really did think that we should focus on not just strategic, specialized, technical, and foundational competencies, but all of them. I'll show you on the next slide the old one, and I'll go ahead and go now. This was the old one that if any of you have been around for a while may have been used to seeing this one for a while. It was released in 2013, but those areas of expertise around that central dial in that pentagon shape were what people really dove into. And those foundational competencies at the bottom were the ones that people would forget about and they would just dismiss as oh yeah, those are the soft skills that everyone needs to know. But in some cases, those soft skills got forgotten as far as training or as far as knowing when you are working on professional development that you also need to work on those soft skills. And what we found was that people would dive into an area of expertise and forget about needing to know other things. For example, an instructional designer would just dive into the instructional design knowledge and skill statements and really not pay attention, or not that they didn't care, but they thought, well, I'm an instructional designer and this is my passion and this is all I ever want to do. But what we found in the survey responses that even instructional designers thought that it was important to know learning technologies and how to coach and how to communicate with others and a variety of other things that we'll get into in just a second. We also wanted to be able to define the scope of talent development. Again, one of the things that this one gave us was the ability to kind of put our stake in the sand to be able to tell people what talent development really is. When we came up with this word or this moniker, was 2014 from ASTD to ATD, the Association for Talent Development. There was some mumbling out in the profession, people said, it's a lot harder to say that I'm a talent development professional than it is for me to say that I'm a trainer. But when you look at what you do, you really do develop talent. And what does that all encompass? And in some cases, and I'll cover this in a minute, you really did sell yourself short if you said you were a trainer, because you did so much more. Let's see, the customization. Again, with this one, people would dive into their AOE and just look at the knowledge and skill statements, and they wouldn't look at anything else. The customization, to be able to make it personal. I know a lot of people would say that they put this poster, we made posters of this, and they would put it up on their wall and they would look at it, but there was really no way to live in it. And one of the goals was to have something that was living and breathing. Sounds like we're making Frankenstein, doesn't it? We wanted people to, the living and breathing piece was to be able to give people career development pathing. A lot of people come into this field and they're accidental trainers, or I've even heard of accidental instructional designers, and they get into it and they don't know how to go to the next level. They don't know how to get the next job. They don't know how to advance. And so we wanted to be able to give people an idea of how to do that. Again, it needed to be simple. It needed to be understood by anyone looking at it, and it needed to have a common language. Let's see. Again, I've shown this to you. I loved this. And in fact, I conducted a lot of the interviews with the thought leaders. And when I remember the question was, what are the limits of this model? And kind of, it hurt, even though I had nothing to do with this model at all, but it kind of hurt to hear when they would say something about it, because I thought it was wonderful as it was. But we did come up with a new one. And I love this one. What we ended up with, remember I said after we got all the research back from that survey and we talked to our advisory panel and massaging the data in order to make sense of it, we came out with 3 domains of practice: the building personal capabilities, developing professional capabilities, and impacting organizational capabilities. And remember I said it was 197 knowledge and skill statements in the original one. What actually survived were 188 knowledge and skill statements that we divided into 23 different capabilities. And really, and this was a little confusing at first, but when we looked at it, the research really did show that talent development professionals need to know a blending of these knowledge and skills from the different capabilities, that really you couldn't just dive into instructional design and that be your home, because instructional design involves so many different things in order to get the job done, that you really did need to come outside that little pie piece in order to be successful in your job. So we did some other changes, and just to show you that we're trying to think of it, I'm not going to go back because I don't want to give you whiplash, but going from the Pentagon, and I think 7 years before it had been a triangle, and then before that it had been something else even before that. And so like I said, also everything that ATD does is based on this model. And so every 7 years, it almost feels like we upset the apple cart all over again. And so one of the things that we wanted to do with this new model was to have it be a little bit more evergreen, so that when things did update, we didn't have to change the entire background again. And so in doing so, we also decided to change a couple of the names. So some of the old areas of expertise, AOEs as we call them, from the old model got changed or updated, or to be a little bit more evergreen. And I'm not going to talk about all of these. I will point out learning technologies. Learning technologies was an AOE in the last one. And one of the things that we realized was that not all the technologies that you as a talent development professional use, touch, need to know are learning technologies. It might be a database that you need to know. It might be a video software that you need to know, and that's not necessarily a learning technology. And so we updated that name to be technology application to be a nod to the fact that, again, you might be shortchanging yourself if you're just calling it a learning technology, because there's so many different technologies that you're responsible for. Let's see, another one, global mindset. The global mindset was new in 2014 and was new for us, but we also realized that it was not just a global mindset that we needed to have as professionals, that that there are other cultural things that we need to know, as well as gender. And so we changed it from global mindset to cultural awareness and inclusion. Business skills became business insight. Let's see. We added facilitation, because sometimes it's not just your training, sometimes you're facilitating. Managing learning programs was another one. Again, that was a little piece of the pie in the 2013 model, but we realized that managing learning programs is more of a role or a level, and not necessarily a piece of the pie. So we actually took that out completely out, because it is spread across multiple new capabilities, but it's also a level. You might not start out in your career managing a learning program. That would be something that you would grow into. So these are just a few of the changes. I see things are blinking on the screen. So I think, Nina, have there been questions that have come in?
Not yet.
Okay.
There were comments, for instance, or a bit of surprise about zero military participation, numbers there. And so far, somebody mentioning that they love one of your advisors, but no questions. Is there anybody who would like to unmute themselves to ask to Holly a question directly? I guess not, Holly.
Okay.
Oh,
I'll keep going.
Hey, Holly.
there it
This
is.
is Rob.
Hey, Rob.
Hi. You can keep this for later if it's more appropriate, but after you've been through all this and we're 2 years in, I'm going to be curious to ask, so now that you've started to get used to this model, where do you think the next model will take us, and what kind of time frame is there in reviewing it again? Is it going to be a 4-year cycle again, or a 7-year cycle? What do you think?
What we had planned was to actually do a mini update this year, not necessarily updating, but kind of pressure testing. Last year was not a normal year in any stretch of anyone's imagination. But I think that what we saw was that what we had built did stand the test of 2020. One of the things that we had planned to do in late 2020 was get the advisory group, get the gang all back together. But because of the way COVID turned our world upside down, we have decided to wait until the middle of this year to do that. We hope that there's not a major shift. I don't think there's a major shift, and I'm kind of going to turn it around and ask you and ask the chapter, as you are, I have a challenge a little bit later on for you to dive into this more. But I'd like to ask what you all think. Is there anything missing? Is there anything that you see isn't quite right now that we've lived with it for now a year? Because, even though the survey was done in 2019, we didn't release it until last January. So we've been living with it for a year. Is there anything that you feel like is skewed? So I'm going to turn that back around on you once you've done a little bit of investigating.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you may have. Have you had a chance to look?
Yes, I have. I really do. I didn't understand the purpose behind it, but as you relayed that you wanted this to be something that people could live inside of a little bit more, rather than just hang on the wall.
Yeah.
I think you have achieved that, because I think the whole structure of building personal capability, professional capability, and organizational capability really resonates very, very strongly with
good
personal, professional goals and organizational goals. And very much parallels a lot of the goal setting that is used inside of most organizations.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah.
And I did have a slide in this, but I ended up taking it out because I thought I was going a little long. But it went into a little bit more about the personal, professional, and organizational, and how we worked with our own artists or creative artists back at the office to develop this teardrop model, because we really didn't want a hierarchy at all. Because again, the data came back saying that it all blended together. And so how do we represent it so that there's nothing that is more important than the others?
Yeah.
And so personal blends into the professional. The personal ones, those soft skills, blend into the blue, the professional, which you normally think of as the bread and butter talent development skills. And then also how all of that blends into the goals of the organization, because you wouldn't exist in your job if there weren't goals for the organization. And so understanding how all that works together kind of is what you all do.
and I really like, because the performance management structure so typically has organizational goals, and once we know what the goals of the organization are, then you can think about yourself as an individual and how you're supporting those goals. I really like the equilibrium represented.
Good. Well,
Beautifully
I'm going
done.
to get out of the slide and actually show you. And there. This is the interactive site. And the reason I was a little bit late coming to this was that for some reason I cannot get me to show up here. You get to this site, there's several places you can link to it from the td.org site, but the website is just tdcapability.org. And again, we are an association for the profession. And when we did the research, it was very costly, but we also knew that this research was the talent development professions research. This is the talent development. This is not ATD's capability model. This is the profession's capability model. So anybody can access this. This is not behind a paywall. You do need to have a td.org account in order to save anything. But if you're wanting to show your new mate that you are what you do, because they may hear that you're a talent developer and you're like, what? You can show them this and they can go straight to tdcapability.org and do not need to have an account in order to see it and explore. Again, there are some job aids at the bottom I wanted to show before I dove into it, but it's really cool. We were so excited. We partnered with a group out of Colorado. They're called, the name of the company is called Superhumane, and I cannot recommend them enough. They were truly super. They were the ones who came up with this, and it is their platform that hosts it. It's so cool. You can explore just straight here or all the way at the bottom. If there's a particular capability you want to go straight to, you can come down here. But just by clicking on either the green, blue, or yellow, it pulls up the capabilities that are contained in that domain. The blue one over here you can see, and just by clicking on the yellow, you can bring those up. And then once you get into it, clicking on, say, change management. Everybody's definition is different from place to place to place, and so we thought we'd start with a generally accepted definition of what change management is, especially in the realm of talent development. And so I start each of the capabilities out with a definition of what it is. Another one is that you might, what exactly is future readiness? I know what I think of when I think of future readiness, but what, as far as a talent developer, is future readiness? So we start off with a definition, and then you can scroll down and see the knowledge and skill statements that made it in the survey, that all of the over 3,000 people said were important to know and do in your job. Again, just go through it and just explore what exactly is change management. Come back up to personal capabilities and look at what is contained in personal capabilities. There are 7 capabilities, 49 knowledge and skill statements. So this is just the plain old, I'm packing a lunch and I'm exploring. The next step is the step that really is important for you to be able to have that td.org. Again, it's free, td.org account, and that's the self-assessment. And this is where you are rating yourself against those knowledge and skill statements. So for example, I've done communication already. I kind of just cheated. I didn't really do it. So don't think that I'm consistent in expressing my thoughts, feelings, and ideas in a clear and concise manner. But this is the way you do it. I wanted to have one that I could show you that this is how you assess yourself. You think of the courses you've taken, you think of your experiences as a professional, and if you're brand new to this, maybe your experiences as in a volunteer role, and you rate yourself. There is a rating key over to the side, and you all are still able to see my screen, right? Okay, I'm seeing Nina shake her head, but we have a ratings key over to the side. It goes from little or none, which is 1, up to exceptional proficiency, which is 5. And you just go through and you rate yourself. And so let me come down to project management. You read the knowledge statement and then you just rate yourself. And as you rate yourself, you see you have a progress bar at the bottom. So it keeps progress of how far you're coming. And then as I am rating myself, it comes up over here on the side, but also here at the top at a proficiency rating for this capability.
And Holly, since you're at it, there's a clarification question that I think many of us are wondering, which is understanding cultural awareness and then managing cultural differences. How do you distinguish the two?
Well, let's go over to it and find out. These are the knowledge and skill statements that made it through the survey under cultural awareness and inclusion. I'm not sure if this answers the person's question. And feel free to unmute or chat it to me.
Yeah, this Paula, if you'd like to type something in the chat, she was having some problems with her audio, so she indicated earlier that she was unable to speak up. So as I look at the screen, it looks more, it feels to me like the general definition of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yes. Hi. Can you guys hear me?
Oh, yes, we can.
Yes. Hey.
I'm
Hi.
so happy, Paula.
I had to go get off the cell phone and get on here. I'm sorry. My apologies. I'm retired now, so I'm just asking questions that could possibly help me as I move into indulging into building a company. And what I wanted to ask was the difference with the cultural awareness compared to which, cultural competencies and things of that nature. My question is the job in managing culture. There seems to be a difference in being aware of culture and then managing cultural differences. How do you manage that cultural difference within your organization or company? And so I just wanted to, because I know on the model spoke about going from global to cultural awareness and inclusion. And I come from the world of inclusion, from the education model. But my thing is there's still that piece of managing cultural differences and being aware of cultural awareness. I hope I'm being clear on it.
I think you are, but I think that maybe I'm not as versed in this subject as I should be.
Okay.
Um,
That's what I was wondering with this assessment. Does it cover the awareness part, or does it more cover the management side of?
It's more as a professional, some of the awareness things. Most of these are, there's only two skills, skill in adapting and adjusting attitude, perspective, or behavior to function effectively in diverse environments, and skill in integrating diversity and inclusion principles and talent development strategies and initiatives. So I think the better you are, or the more advanced you are, the more you're able to maybe manage a program in this. Maybe if, for me, if I was doing this, I would be little limited and consistent, but I certainly would not be advanced or exceptional in anything here. I don't know whether that is helping you.
Well, it does. I think I'll probably just look at the assessment and, go from there and
Okay.
see. And I think that's very, very helpful with your
Okay.
answer, though. Thank you.
And
Thank you.
Sure.
Holly?
Sure.
Holly, the other thing that might be helpful is the awareness piece is under the personal capability, where the management piece, I can't remember if it's under professional or organizational.
Talent strategy and management.
Perhaps, but just the awareness is the personal piece of the puzzle, where the leadership piece of it and managing a team is
collaboration and leadership.
Yeah, there you go. It's probably cultural awareness and inclusion. We're back on the personal. Yeah. I thought that may be what she was getting at, Paula. Is that you're talking about the difference between the personal capability of awareness versus being able to lead and manage a team to be aware?
Absolutely. You're right on point, Rob.
This is more your personal. This is more for you as the professional.
Okay. Thank you.
As you go through, it does roll up to an overall proficiency for each one of them. And you can come over to your report at the end of it. I was trying to log in as my other persona, my alter image, and I have filled it out completely, and you're able to see what my overall proficiency scores are for personal, professional, and organizational, which is a great way to take off the blinders if you don't know where your weaknesses and strengths are. So you can look and see what your top capabilities are. And you can click and show. And if I had completed all of this, if I could show you the one that I've completed, you would see what my bottom capabilities are, so that if you are looking at where you should be able to focus professional development, you're able to point out any of these on the bottom are ones that you probably should work for. If you are job seeking, I know that some of the new resumes have some neat features as far as some of your top skills. And so you might want to highlight some of your top capabilities here on your resume. But this is also a great place to have a conversation with your manager for professional development, because you can see where you are tops and maybe need to work on a little bit. This all feeds into something that was just released at the end of last year, which is my learning plan. And I'm going to quickly go over this because I see my time is almost up and I haven't even gotten through everything. You actually start with my learning path. So I know it doesn't make sense, but if you start with my learning path, you first pick a path. You have to know where you're going in order to get there. I mean, sometimes I do wander, but there are different ones that we have created here. There's a self-guided one. So if you have a goal of, say, I'm getting some new data and analytics responsibilities, and I need to understand more about data and analytics, that would be a self-guided goal. A certification certainly is a goal. And then we also have some development paths where we took some of the data from the survey where people said that they were a trainer or they were an e-learning professional. And so what were the competencies that stood out the most there? So what you would do is you would click on them and see what they are. But as you can see back when I was setting up this profile, I selected the instructional designer learning path, and I selected this as my learning path. So I clicked select this as my learning path. And then I have, again, selected a goal or a path, and then I'm going to go add learning resources. And one of the cool things about this is that we preloaded all of the courses, all of the books, all of the webcasts, the TD at Work publications that we have. We preloaded this into this so that if you, let's say, go to instructional design and know that you want to work on instructional design, there are, if you click on resources to generally develop this capability, let me come up here first. It's not working. Oh, there it is. I can pre-say, you know, as an ATD member, I've got another book coming to me. Or I'm thinking about, I've been given a little bit of money this year and I can attend a conference. Again, there's all kinds of different things. I've got an hour this afternoon and I want to go see what kinds of webcasts that ATD has in this. And so they have the Futurist Leader. And so I can add that to my plan. It shows up in your plan. And just to show that we know that we're not the end all be all in education. There are other things out there that you can do, the e-learning guild, there's all kinds of other things that are out there. You can also add your own resources down at the bottom. It's not just ATD resources that you can add to your plan. So you just add the resource title, you put in the resource URL and add it. I did this one. This one was a fake one from, I said LinkedIn Learning Instructional Design for Beginners. I made that up, but let's pretend like that's one. And then I pretended like I completed it just to show people that you can complete it. And it shows up on your plan as you come over to that first tab again. So you see what's in the queue. You saw that I added that Futurist Leader, that webcast to my plan that I want to do it. Once I complete it, I can update my assessment. I go back to the assessment and I reassessed my knowledge and my ability to understand those different knowledge and skill statements. And so I can either do it now or I can do it later. And it adds to my learning plan. I know that I spent way too much time at the beginning of this trying to give some of the background, so I didn't quite get through all of this. And I see we're almost out of time. I do have one more thing. Hold on, let me get to it real quick.
And you do have another question, Holly. While you're looking for your slides, I think the question is quite interesting. You gave instructional designer as an example. What about for a talent development generalist? Is that a career path?
Good question. Let's go back to the learning path. The ones that are here there's a coach one that's already pre-built. The talent development manager probably would be your generalist, I know, but it's a manager. What you would do is be on the path to be a manager. This one's coming soon. They're working on it behind the scenes to add to. Right now we have trainer, e-learning professional, and the instructional designer already built out. But for right now, what's coming soon is the HROD professional and the talent development manager that's coming soon. And I asked them the other day, when did they think? And I think it's probably going to be closer to mid Q2 before we have it. I was telling people on a webcast last week that it would be the end of this first quarter, but it's going to be probably mid Q2 before it's done. But this probably would be the closest to the generalist.
Thank you.
Yes. If you have questions, let me throw this up here. Capability model at td.org. If you have questions about the model. If you want to talk about certification, I didn't get to it. Molly had told me I wanted a little bit about certification. I can talk to anybody. That's my heart. And so if you're interested in the APTD or CPTD, I'd be glad to talk to you. And down at the bottom is my td.org email address. So if you want to just talk to me, let me know. But thank you for having me. I love talking to the chapters. We started this last year, and this has been one of my, I mean, Molly will write us and say, this chapter would like a presentation. I'll do it. I'll do it.
We can see your enthusiasm. Thank you so much, Holly. This was really helpful. And I see from the comments in the chat that people loved the tool. They're thanking you. So again, thank you for your time, and appreciate the presentation, which has all of the links that you just showed, right?
Yes, y'all have
Okay.
it. I sent it to Molly earlier, and I think y'all have it now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much. So as we wrap up, I made you a promise that I was going to, and by the way, if you noticed, we have Holly's LinkedIn profile here as well. If you're interested in connecting with her directly, um, but just because I promised, I was going to talk briefly about what we are planning for the year. What you see here is really a sneak preview of the themes that we kind of discussed and selected, especially for the chapter, considering that with the speed of change in every business, our function must continue to evolve. And Holly, I wish we could connect all of these themes to to the capability model. We hope we did a good job there. But we went through the ATD national site, TND, the Learning Guild, SHRM, and also LinkedIn, to pick themes that we see are going to be most relevant, or that were most popular or sought in these forums. And we are excited to bring you sessions on things like virtual engagement, career management. I think we started, Nate mentioned that we know of so many people who were displaced. So career management, we want to offer a panel with leaders about remote management and engagement, or bring CLOs to talk about the L&D ecosystem, because there are just so many vendors and products out there. DNI, or diversity, equity, and inclusion. And of course, closer towards the year end, look at what is next in the future of work. So we will soon post this year's learning journey in our website. So please visit, stay tuned. And oh, I almost forgot. As if it weren't enough, remember that we also have our SIGs, the special interest groups, and they'll include tech, higher ed, consultancy. There's the Sarasota gig, and Learning on Tap. Sean McGinty would not forgive me if I didn't mention that. So please plan on joining, and not just that, help spread the word, because our chapter is only as strong as its members and as our speakers. You could see the energy in Holly's presentation. So once again, thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Holly, for presenting to us. And I wanted to wrap up, respect your time, but on behalf of the entire chapter and our leaders here, thank you so much for participating. And you saw a list. Keep eyes on our site, because we have plenty of opportunities to continue developing ourselves and make an impact. Okay. With that, thank you very much, and you all have a good night.